Good morning, respected teachers. We have started our journey of English pedagogy for CTET, and wherein we have covered two methods in the previous class, that were the classical method. Now, in today's class, we'll cover inductive method, deductive method, and army method, or the audiolingual method of teaching English. We'll try to do some of the previous year questions as well based on these methods or approaches, we may say. So let's start with our first topic for today, that is inductive method of teaching language or inductive method of teaching English. Today I'll try to be bilingual as much as possible or as far as possible. Now, in inductive method, what we do is we as teachers do present various examples or n number of examples, and we do expect from the student that student will observe our examples and will try to find out some pattern, will try to find out the hidden thing, that is the rule which is unknown for the student. So what we do is we start with the example which is known to the student, and then we expect the student will observe and find out the pattern or the rule hidden into that content, and will form the rule at the last. So our journey begins from the specific examples which is known to the student, and then this journey concludes in the inductive method. The journey concludes at the general rule or the general formula, which is our learning objective generally. So we want to teach some rule, we want to teach some grammar or vocabulary to the student. That rule, that grammar, that vocabulary is the last aim that we want to attain. Or we start our journey with the examples or the previous knowledge of the student, and will continue through observation and pattern recognition and then rule formation. These steps are done by the student. So we see that as teacher, what we have done, we have presented the examples. As student, what student have done, student have observed the pattern and student have made the rule for themselves. So in the inductive method, we can see that students are actively engaged in the learning process, whereas the role of the teacher is minimal. This method is henceforth good for the primary classes. Why? Because it turns the passive listeners or the passive students into the active speakers, into the active learners, into the active meaning makers. Let's see the example of how do we teach through inductive method in the classroom. Let's say we have to teach the topic, that is adjectives, into the primary classroom by using the inductive method. What will we do? Step 1, we have to present specific examples or many examples or various examples or n number of examples, and we have to plan it in a way that it should lead to the desired goal, to the desired outcome, that student would be able to find out that there are certain group of words which are used to describe something or to add some specific quality into the particular content. So what we'll do is, first thing, we will present specific examples or various examples. For example, the teacher has written on the board, Rohan has a red ball, the tall girl is running, I have 3 pens, and various examples we can give. Now, our part is done. What students will do now, we have to scaffold, we have to help the student to reach towards the definition or towards the general rule of what adjectives are. What we will do is we will ask guiding questions that should trigger the cognition of the student, that should trigger the interest of the student. So we'll lead through the guiding questions. For example, we'll ask, what kind of ball does Rohan have? Now student can see the sentence that is written on the board, that Rohan has a red ball, and then our guiding question or the triggering question is, what kind of ball does Rohan have? The student will reply red, and then obviously we can promote the students, we can ask the student to speak in full sentences. If the student said red, taller 3, we can say that please speak in full sentence. Now what we have done, we have asked the triggering question, what kind of ball does Rohan have? Answer is red from the student side. Then again we have asked the second question, what type of girl is running? What means the feature of the girl? Then the student will say tall. how many pens do I have? Student will say 3. Now gradually students will realize that there is some pattern in this red, tall, 3. What is that pattern? That hidden pattern is, it is describing the noun, it is describing, it is adding description, it is telling about number, it is telling about specific features. Now the moment students say that, ma'am, these words are describing something or adding something, adding some quality into the noun, we can catch up and we can conclude with the help of the student that yes, there are certain group of words which is used as descriptive words, which are used to which are used to tell something about some qualitative things about the content, about the material. What we can do is, we can ask the student, yes, that you have identified the right pattern, that there are some words which are used to describe something, and that those describing words which are used to tell about the quality of something are generally known as adjectives in terms of parts of speech. So instead of writing the topic that today we are going to learn or study about adjectives and these are the type of adjectives, what we have done is, we started with presenting certain group of examples, then we help the student to identify and observe the pattern, hidden pattern, and the student identifies the patterns, recognizes and makes a general rule and a general idea with the help of the teacher, and that rule is we can ask the student to do practice, and then eventually student will learn that particular concept. So this is how we go through the journey of inductive method, from starting from the known example to the unknown rule to the unknown universal formula to the unknown grammatical aspect. Now, there are certain teaching maxims which are based on inductive method, or we can say alternatively, inductive method is based on these teaching maxims. Vis-a-vis, we can say either the methods is based on the maxim or the maxims is based on the inductive method, and those maxims are known to unknown, concrete to abstract, specific to general, and example to rule. So in CTET we may be asked that which of the following teaching maxims is related to or are related to the inductive method. So we see that we have seen that we have presented the known thing to the student first. Known thing is, for a primary class kid, is the real object. For example, apple is the real object, a realia, which is known for the student. Might be he is not aware of the spelling or the pronunciation or the word apple, but apple as an object he is aware of. So what we are going to do is, we are going to present an apple in front of the student, and the student will say that yes, I have eaten it, it tasted like that, or this, that, whatever words the student will use to describe or speak about that particular object. And then gradually we'll ask the student that this is apple and its spelling is A-double-P-L-E, apple. It is pronounced like in a certain way. So the teaching maxim that is related to the inductive method is known to unknown. And then second is concrete to abstract. Concrete are the things which can be seen, which can be touched, on which the student can work, can taste, can throw, can turn and tear off everything. That means the student can do hands-on activities on the objects. The objects that are available into the classroom, that are available into the environment, are the concrete things. Whereas some concepts like grammatical rules, like vocabulary, are generally abstract for the student, because students cannot see them, student cannot touch them, student cannot act over them. So what we are going to do is, we will start from the concrete objects that can be seen, that can be touched upon, and then will lead to the abstract idea or the abstract grammatical rule or the abstract vocabulary. So it goes from the direction concrete to abstract. Concrete means those things on which our senses can work. Real world objects are the concrete objects, and the grammatical rules, the vocabulary, are all the abstract formula for the student. So we have to lead from the concrete to the abstract. Next is specific to general. What is specific? Every example in itself is specific. Every example in itself is unique. Every example in itself is different. So all examples are specific. Let's say we are writing 5 sentences on the board. So each sentence is one specific example. Now from that specific example, student will recognize the pattern, and based on the pattern, student will tell the general rule or the universal grammatical formula. So in the inductive method, we move from the specific to the general rule, from the specific example to the general rule to the universal rule to the formula. And next is example 2 rule. We have seen that in inductive method, we start from n number of examples, various examples, and lead the student through the guiding question, through the leading question, through the probing question towards the formation of rule by themselves. So they discover through the examples, they discover the hidden pattern, they discover the hidden grammatical rules through the various examples given by the teacher. So example 2 rule. These are the teaching maxims related to the inductive method. It can be asked as in which of the following maxims are related to the inductive method, or which of the following teaching maxims is the basis or root of inductive method. Next, what are the advantages or disadvantages we may say on how will we identify that the sentence is speaking about inductive method in the examination of CTET? First thing is that this inductive method is perfect for primary class. When I say perfect for primary class, which means if we are asked that which of the following method is best for primary teaching, for pre-primary classroom or primary classroom, we have to go with inductive method. Let's say example says inductive, deductive, and so and so. We have to always opt for inductive method. Inductive method is best for primary classes. Why? Because it gives the opportunity to explore, opportunity to discover, opportunity to work, opportunity to get involved through your senses. So it is good for primary classes because it gives opportunity of learning by doing, opportunity of hands-on activities. Now, when we say it gives you the opportunity to work upon, which means definitely it would be time consuming process. If you have to run up the syllabus, if you have to run up the curriculum, you cannot go for inductive method. So the disadvantage of inductive method is it is time consuming process. You cannot run with the syllabus quickly with the inductive method because it needs a lot of activities to be done, so it takes time. It is a time consuming process. Now the key word that we have to catch into our examination, that is CTET. What? Let's say our question says rules are told first. So there is a sentence wherein the meaning of the sentence is the teacher uses this method and teacher is speaking up the rules first or telling the rules first and followed by the examples. So if rules are told first followed by the examples, which means you have written students, today we are going to learn about adjectives and these are the type of adjectives. So if you are following this method, it is deductive, which we have to avoid, which we have to neglect, which we have to reject, which we have to denounce into the primary classroom, which is not expected to be used into the primary classroom frequently. So if you do opposite to this means which you start with the examples, you present various examples and that example leads towards the formation of rules, it is always inductive. So if in our examination the language is such, rules are told first followed by the examples, it is deductive. If our question says examples are presented first leading to deduction of rules by the students, it is inductive method. If it says examples are presented first leading to deduction of rules by the teachers, then that would be different thing. Leading to the formation of rules by the student, that's inductive. Our next method for today is a deductive method, which is exactly opposite to the inductive method. In inductive method, we started with example, we gave the student to opportunity to explore, opportunity to discover, opportunity to find out the pattern, opportunity to find out the hidden rule, and then with the help of the teachers probing questions, students leads towards a particular rule or a grammatical rule or a grammatical formula. Now here in deductive method, let's say we have very less time and we have to complete the syllabus, or we have very less time, we have to just give the practice to the student. We have very less time and we have to complete the content. What we can do? Then in that particular scenario, we cannot opt for inductive method. In that time, in that less span of time, we have to go for the deductive method. In deductive method, what we do is we generally write on the board the first and foremost thing, that what is the topic for today. Let's say the topic is tense, topic is voice, topic is narration, or topic is noun, pronoun, adjective, whatever it is, adverb. So first thing is we write the topic and then we write the general rule of the particular topic, and then on the basis of the rule, in order to justify the rule or certify the rule, we write the examples and then ask the student to copy it down and practice in the same way. This is deductive method. This is the traditional approach. This is the classical example of teaching learning process, wherein teacher starts with the general rule, with the grammatical rule, and then teacher explains that particular rule, adds some examples into that rule, and then asks the student to practice, apply and verify the particular concept. So this is the way of doing one concept through deductive method. Explanation of presentation of general rule, then explanation of rule, then providing examples, and then ask the student to practice and verify the particular concept. This is deductive method, from general rule to the definition. Now, what are rules? Are the student aware of the general rules? Are the student aware of the grammatical rules? Are the student aware of the vocabulary, the abstract concept? The answer is simply no. So, in deductive method, we start from the unknown and leads towards the known. The examples are known for the student. The real object, the things that the content that we present to the student through rule, that real object for which we are talking about, let's say we are talking about this pen. So this pen is known for the student, but pen, pen, spelling or vocabulary or pronunciation or meaning might the student be not aware of that particular concept. So in deductive method, we start from the unknown general rule, unknown formula, unknown grammatical aspect, abstract concept, absurd concept, and then leads towards the known thing which the student can see in their environment, into the classroom, into the their wall. So we start with general rule and set the formulation of verification and practice of the particular concept. In the deductive method, let's take example of that particular concept, adjective. We have done adjective through the inductive method, wherein we started with a series of examples and then led to the practice. Now here, what we have to do in the deductive method is, let's say we have to teach adjective. First and foremost thing what we are going to do as teacher is, we have to write the topic. Students, today we are going to do adjectives. Now this is the definition of adjective, please write it down. These are the examples of adjective, please write it down. Now this is the homework, please practice and come again. Now this is what deductive method. We started by presenting the general rule, we started by presenting the general formula, we started by presenting the scientific term, we started by presenting the particular definition, we started by giving the particular textbook exercise or textbook practice or textbook content. And then we explain that particular definition or that particular paragraph or that particular concept by giving examples. So we take help of examples just to explain the concept that we have already written on the board and that we have already asked the student to copy. Explain the rule with the specific examples and then ask the student to please practice it, apply it, and as a homework please do it, and the next day please come again. This is how we'll teach adjectives through the deductive method. Now, what are the advantages or limitations of deductive method? First and foremost thing, we have discussed that it is time saving. It does not consume a lot of time because we know the boundaries of the content. We have decided that today we are going to tell about adjective, definition of adjectives and types of adjectives. The boundary is set, limit is set. We just have to write the rules. We just have to ask the student to copy it, practice it. So it is less time consuming. It saves your time. Second thing, it is good for higher classes. It is good for higher classes, but it is bad for primary students. So it is good for upper primary, it is good for secondary, it is good for middle state, but it's not good for the primary class. But in the upper classes, we are not required to give n number of examples and ask the student to find out the pattern. They can easily write down the rule, learn the rule, find out the pattern. It's easy for the upper classes. Now, what is the one more advantage of this particular deductive method is it promotes memory and speed. Since students from the beginning of the class gets an habit of using that particular rule, mugging it up, memorizing it up, presenting it up, writing it in the form of question answer. So, and that exactly they have to do in the examination. They have to write it down in the form of question answer. For example, they have to write the definition of adjectives in the examination. They have to give examples of adjectives into the examination. And this is the practice that they start from the beginning of the classroom if you teach through the deductive method. So it gives the student the speed, the pace to work as per the requirement of the examination. So it is basically the drill of the exam. This is the advantage of deductive method. But major limitation, major criticism, or for the reason you can say that CTET says the deductive method is not good is it promotes rote learning, it promotes memorization, it makes the learners passive because learner has to sit quietly, wait for the teacher to write the rule, and then learner have to copy it, wait for the teacher to narrate some examples, and then the learner will generally write that particular rule. So it is not child centered, it is totally teacher centered rule, and that's the reason that CTET says the deductive method should not be used in the primary classroom. It should be avoided. Now, we have to avoid the deductive method at primary stage. In CTET, if it is asked, shall we use deductive method in the primary classroom, the answer is no. Second, we have seen in the previous class that the root or the foundation of the grammar translation method is deductive approach or deductive method. So it is related to the particular concept that we have done, that is grammar translation method. Grammar translation method is based on deductive method, because in grammar translation method also what we have done is we have presented the rule to the student, we have presented read line by line meaning to the student, asked the student to translate. So it is the core, deductive method is the core of grammar translation method. We have already discussed it. Now let's say our example says which of the following examples is best, or which of the following methods is best for primary classroom, and the options are like inductive method, option B deductive method, option C both inductive and deductive method, or option C says that blend of inductive and deductive. We have to always go with the blend. If the options are like it says separately which is the best method, inductive method or deductive method, we'll go with inductive method. But if in option C we have the option C that is a blend of a mix of inductive and deductive, then mix of inductive and deductive is the best method. If options are like that, then we'll go with blend of inductive and deductive, mix of inductive and deductive, wherein the route, the path that we have to follow is start the lesson, start the concept with inductive method, but end the lesson, conclude the lesson, summarize the lesson by deductive way. So start the journey in the inductive way, end the journey in the deductive way, mix both, blend it, make it a blend. That blend is best because it gives you the opportunity for hands-on activities, discovery learning, and it gives you the concept in your cognition as well. You mug up the things as well, you revise the things as well, you learn the things as well. So mix of inductive and deductive is best. If it is not available in option, then we'll go with inductive. We have to avoid deductive until and unless the question says find out the features which these features are aligning with which method, deductive method or inductive method. Next, our next topic for today is ALM, audio-lingual method, or the ARMY method. Now, if we see at the root of ARMY method, if we see at the history of the ARMY method, or if we see at the past why this audio-lingual method came into existence, you will find out the fact that at the time of World War II, there was a need, and the need was to prepare some soldiers who can proficiently communicate in the language, in the particular language where the soldiers are required. For example, in Japan, Japanese is required. In China, Mandarin is required. In India, Hindi is required. In Britain, we can say English is required. And let's say that in colony of Europe, English was required. So the root, the cause, the reason behind this audio-lingual method or the origin of audio-lingual method was the requirement for training the soldiers in the language that is required to fight that particular war. So Britishers felt this need that we need to train the soldiers in the conversational English so that they can communicate with the officers, they can communicate with the people that are involved in the war. So army that's why the name for audio-lingual method, another name for audio-lingual method or the classical name for audio-lingual method is army method, because in origin of this method what we see is the existence of army. What happened? How have we trained the soldiers at that particular era? See, the first and foremost thing and the requirement of this particular method was this. Can you see? recording. The native speakers, the fluent English speakers, the classical speakers, or you can say the people with the people who had the good command over the language used to record their voice, and then that recorded voice in terms of context. Let's say during the drill, the soldiers have to follow these commands. What are these commands? How do we have to act over that? That particular commands and related instructions related to the drills were recorded, and then that recording was made available, what was given to the soldiers. The soldiers has to, what they have to do? They have to listen to it n number of times until and unless they are habitual of it, until and unless they mug up it, or they revise it, or they recap it, or they learn it. You can say that rote memorization. Focus was rote memorization. What soldiers were expected to listen to the audio, behave like the native speaker, speak like the native speaker, practice like the native speaker, and then become eligible to communicate with the native speaker. That are Britishers at that particular era. So this is basically the introduction or history of the army lingual method, audio lingual method, or the army method. Now, in CTET, there are certain questions wherein you have to identify the difference between the audio lingual method and the communicative language teaching. CLT we will do perhaps in the tomorrow's class. Class of tomorrow. Communicative language teaching makes you able to communicate in terms like, let's say you have to go to the bank, you can communicate into the bank. You have to go to the college, you can communicate into the college. So communicative language teaching will give you the competence to communicate, wherein the army lingual method will just make you machine, will just train you for a particular area, for a particular type of concept wherein you can speak. But let's say you have to use that particular skill into the another field, you won't be able to use. So in audio lingual method, it is totally based on rote memorization. It does not give you the competency to speak. It just gives you the certain set of dialogues which you can use in certain set of contextual environment. Now let's begin with the audio lingual method. History is done. First and foremost thing that we need to know about army lingual method is that it is the origin, the root of this particular concept is the military. During World War II, US military felt that we need to train people in the Asian languages. British military felt that we need to train people in the English so that they can communicate, they can follow the command of their officers. First thing, so military origin. Second is oral and oral supremacy. Oral is you speak and oral is you listen. So either you speak or you are listening. So your focus in the audio lingual method is on speaking and listening. Oral supremacy. Now, when we say supremacy, which means the recordings that we used to get, the material, the tool that we used to get to train ourselves or to learn the language were made by the native speakers. And native speakers were the speakers with correct pronunciation, accurate pronunciation, accurate grammar. So we used to drill that particular pronunciation again and again, or n number of times. We used to practice that grammatical structure n number of times. We used to mug up that. So the focus was totally on either speaking or listening. So both listening and speaking were at the center of the audio lingual method. Then what was the core unit of audio lingual method? We have seen in the previous class that the unit was word, then we have seen that the unit was sentence. Now if we see in the audio lingual method, what is the smallest unit that we have to focus? The smallest unit that we have to focus in the audio lingual method are the dialogues. We used to get the dialogues. We have that particular native speaker will create a context. Native speaker will create a context. In that context, they will create the dialogues. Now that dialogues will be given to the learner, and learner will practice, will drill that dialogue n number of times, and will try to mimic, will try to imitate, will try to memorize, will try to repeat that drill particular n number of times, and then make habitual, make that particular dialogue a habit of that speaking. So dialogues are at the core of this particular concept, audio lingual method. Dialogue is the smallest unit that we practice in the audio lingual method. And then contrastive analysis. Contrastive analysis means, see, the speakers for whom the training is to be designed, or the learners for whom the training is to be designed must be having their own language. For, let's say, for in the context of India, it is Hindi. Let's say speakers are Hindi speakers, so their language 1 will be Hindi, and L2 that we need to train in is English. So what we have to do is, to train the student through the audiolingual method, we need to find out the contrast between L1 and L2. We need to compare the grammatical structure, we need to compare the elements of the language of English and Hindi, and that through that comparison we will try to find out the contrasting element of both languages, and then ask the students that this is the difference between these two languages you need to take care of while speaking the target language, while speaking English. So by identifying the differences, what is the purpose of finding out this contrast? Why do we find the contrast between Hindi and English, contrast between Tamil and English? Why do we find contrast? To teach the student through audiolingual method, we focus on the contrastive element or contrastive analysis, because we need to focus on the differences, to tell the students that these are the differences. Please keep that in mind so that you don't make errors. If you know the difference between the two languages or the contrastive elements between the two languages, you won't repeat, you won't make that set of errors. So in order to avoid errors, we have to find contrastive analysis and give the students or the learners contrastive analysis of the particular language, that is target language, and the language that speaker speaks. And next is technological integration. Audiolingual method cannot sustain, cannot revive, cannot be used in the classroom until and unless you have the technology. That technology is, when we say technology, means audio tapes, voice recordings, visual projections, or you can say language labs, CAL labs, computer assisted language lab trainings. We need language labs, we need audio tapes, we need visual clips, we need recordings of the native speakers. Now those recordings, tapes, videos are to be used for the student, for making the student aware of the rules, for making the students to speak like the native speakers, for making students able to speak like the native speakers. We definitely need the audio of the native speaker. If you do not have the audio of native speaker, if you do not have the audio of how the people of Britain speaks the English, how the people of the US speaks the English, and you need to train the student into the US accent or the British accent, you cannot train until and unless you have the audio of that native speaker, or you record yourself by becoming or behaving like the native speaker. So technological integration is one of the important parts of audiolingual method. Without technological integration, audiolingual method cannot sustain. So these are the, you can say, salient features of audiolingual method. Military origin, oral supremacy, which means either you speak or you listen, and then dialogue works as the core unit. What we do is we imitate the dialogue, we practice the dialogue, we repeat the dialogue when we memorize the dialogues, and then we are given the set of contrastive elements. In your language, the placement of subject verb object is like that. In this language, the placement of subject verb object is different. So we need to find out that contrastive analysis, and then technological integration is one of the important parts of the audiolingual method, without which audiolingual method cannot sustain. Now, if we dig deeper into the audiolingual method, we will find that there are two important psychological elements that works as the foundation of the audiolingual method. Or let's say our question says, what are the psychological thoughts, what are the psychological pillars on which the audiolingual method sustains, on which the audiolingual method lives or is made upon. So the first answer is behaviorism. Behaviorism of B.F. Skinner. What is behaviorism? Behaviorism is nothing but this is that, see, learning is equals to habit formation. Learning is equals to memorization. Learning is equals to repetition. Learning is equals to revision. Learning is equals to recapitulation. Learning is equals to habit formation. This is the core philosophy of behaviorism, that you give student one particular dialogue, ask them to practice, ask them to drill n number of times, and then eventually student will be able to speak up that particular dialogue, that particular sentence. So what the behaviorist says that there are three things by which you can develop the habit into the student, and those three things are stimulus. First thing is stimulus, second is response, and third is reinforcement. What is stimulus? Stimulus is the concept, the content that you want to teach. That particular sentence, let's say you want to teach types of sentences or the interrogative sentence, so your examples will work as like stimulus. Now students will try to repeat what you are speaking, will try to write what you are writing, student will try to pronounce like you are pronouncing, student will try to imitate like teacher, student will try to repeat. Let's say you have written on the board, he is playing, okay. Now you are asking your student that please read. Now your student says he is playing. If that student imitates like you, which means that student imitates like the native speaker, or the students imitates like the teacher, definitely teacher will say good boy, good girl, bravo, marvelous, superb, wonderful. The moment you say good boy, good girl, bravo, marvelous, superb, splendid, the moment you say this, student will get reinforcement that yes, my teacher is liking it. Now when my teacher is liking it, what I have to do is I have to repeat it, I have to speak it in the same way, I have to mimic it in the same way, I have to imitate into the same way. So this is what is about habit formation. So the core of audiolingual method, the philosophical core is number one, behaviorism, which focuses on the habit formation, and habit formation is done through SRR, stimulus, response and reinforcement. Now when we see that at the core of, at the root of, at the foundation of audiolingual method, behaviorism exists, we need to focus on one particular thing simultaneously, that is, what about the bad habits? What about the bad habits? Let's say I have written he is playing and student reads it like he plays, or students omits is he playing. Now sentence is he is playing, student is reading it as he playing, student is omitting is or eating is while speaking. What will you do? If you do not ask the student to rectify it immediately or to correct it immediately, that wrong reading, wrong writing will also become habit. Because habit is all about practice or repetition of the thing. So while teaching through audiolingual method, since the foundation is behaviorism, it says that in audiolingual method, errors are to be corrected immediately. Why we have to correct errors immediately? Because if we do not correct the errors immediately, students will get bad habit. That bad habit means wrong practice, wrong drilling, wrong pronunciation, and then that once that habit is formed, it will take years for the student to unlearn that and learn the real thing. So while teaching through audiolingual method, errors are focused immediately, handled immediately, corrected immediately, just to avoid formation of bad habit. Next pillar is structuralism. So I have when I started, I said that there are two core philosophical aspects of audiolingual method. Those two core philosophical aspects, first one we have done is behaviorism or habit formation or operant conditioning of B.F. Skinner, and second is structuralism. Structural linguists like Bloomfield, what they used to say is, they said that language is all about structures, language is all about elements, we have phonemes, morphemes, word classes, sentences, structures. So ask the student to practice phonemes, then ask the student to practice morphemes, then ask the student to practice word classes, then work on the sentences. So these are the elements, we have to focus on each and every element side by side, or we can say separately. And we'll ask the student to practice phonemes first. When the student is expert in phoneme, then we'll move to morpheme, then we'll move to word, then we'll move to the sentences. So this is what about structuralism says. Structuralism says present the language in parts, as chunks, as elements. Ask the student to get mastery over one element and then move to the next element. So this is also working as the core principle under the under the audiolingual method. In audiolingual method as well, we focus on the grammatical forms and the syntactic patterns. Now what is syntactic patterns means? What is syntactic pattern? Grammatical forms you are aware of, grammatical structure, grammatical rules are the grammatical forms that we give the student to hands on, let's say grammatical forms of nouns, and then we ask the student to practice that. Whereas in syntactic pattern what we do is we change the order of the word of the sentence. The moment we change the order of the word in the sentence, the meaning of the sentence is changed. Will definitely change. Now I will ask the student to compare both the sentences, find out the change in the meaning due to the change of the shift of the placing of the words. Now in order to when we are following this pattern recognition method, it's basically the syntactic pattern. Identification of syntactic pattern means sentence is formed, and then in particular form sentence change the word order, place the order, replace the word order, ask the student to find the change in the meaning. So what we are doing here is we are following the structuralism linguistic approach. We are following the grammatical forms, syntactic patterns. We are following the language as part of as different parts, different sets, different elements. So this also works as the core of audio-lingual method, structuralism. So there are two psychological pillars, there are two psychological foundations on which audio-lingual method stands. Those are the structuralism or structural linguistic approach and the foundation, this particular behaviorism. Okay, now what are the core principles of audio-lingual method? Core principles of audio-lingual method. Number one is primary role of spoken language, primary role of speech. We do focus on the speech. Our priority is speaking. What we used to do is, imagine the drilling exercise of the army. We used to record the dialogue of the commander, and then the soldier will listen to it n number of times, will try to act over it, will try to speak it. So the focus is on spoken language. Okay, when we say the focus is on speaking and listening, and we do give a certain set of dialogues, and that dialogues are practiced and mugged up, which means, do we teach grammar deductively or inductively? Do we write the rules of grammar and explains through the example and ask the student to copy? In the audio-lingual method, the answer is no. In audio-lingual method, we follow the inductive method of teaching grammar. The inductive method means we will give n number of dialogues, fixed patterns, and ask the student to find out, ask the student to drill, ask the student to practice, and by the practice the student will be able to find out that particular rule, that particular aspect of the particular content. So inductive grammar is taught through the audio-lingual method through the inductive way, which means presenting the examples, various examples, contextual examples, and then asking the student to find out the pattern. Next is strict prevention of mother tongue, which means, see, if the question says define audio-lingual method in one word, define audio-lingual method in one word, we have to say native speaker. Why do we say native speaker? Because the core of audio-lingual method is listen to the native speakers, follow the native speakers, follow the pronunciation of native speakers, and behave, imitate, mimic just like the native speaker. So if your teacher says schedule, you have to say schedule. If your teacher says in the audio schedule, you have to say schedule. Now you do not know why you are speaking schedule or why we are speaking schedule. You are just imitating it, you are just mimicking it. So there is no scope for using your own language, that is your mother tongue, that is your local language, that is your local dialect. Mother tongue pull effect is neglected, local dialect is neglected, multilingualism is neglected. There is no room, there is no space for using mother tongue while teaching learning through audio-lingual method. Mother tongue is strictly prohibited. Even the mother tongue pull effect is strictly prohibited. We have to mimic and imitate exactly in the way the native speaker is speaking, or our teacher is speaking, or our teacher is teaching. We have to mimic it as it is. We have to mimic it, we have to imitate it as it is. So there is no room for mother tongue. Now, when we say that student will listen to the native speaker, student will listen to the audio of the teacher and will practice, which means it is mechanical drill. Just like the machines work, our students will work. Just like you give the command to the AI will speak like the way you want. Similarly, in audiolingual method, what we expect is our students will do mechanical drills. Our students will do repetition just like the teacher does. So it's the mechanical, based on the mechanical drills. When I say, let's say our question says, which of the following is one of the most important tools of audiolingual method, one of the most important elements of audiolingual method, one of the most important features of audiolingual method? The answer is drill. Drill is the tool in the hand of the teacher who has to practice, who has to teach through the audiolingual method. So we focus on the mechanical drills. There are certain types of drills that we will try to cover up in today's class. All the drills, generally CTET sometimes ask, find out which type of drill is the teacher using in the classroom when the teacher is presenting a particular concept in the particular way. We have to identify the type of drill as well. So the focus is on mechanical drill. Now, when we say native speaker will speak, or we can say the teacher will speak, and the students are expected to listen to the teacher carefully and repeat or imitate or mimic exactly like the teacher, it means the complete class is teacher-centered. The class is not student-centered. Teacher is working as active role model. Teacher is working as native speaker. Teacher is working as lecturer. Teacher is working as orchestrator. Teacher is working as corrector. Teacher is working as the core, the root, the native speaker. So, who is at the center? Teacher is at the center. Who is active? Teacher is active. Who is passive? Students are passive. Everything is focused and centered towards the activities of the teacher. So it is teacher-centered approach. Now, there are different types of drills that we need to be aware of. First is repetition drill, then substitution drill, transformation drill, backward build-up, or we can say expansion drill, chain drill. So there are total, I think, 10 or 12 types of drills. We just will try to just get an idea of it just from the we can say surface. We'll try to have a surface view of all the types of drills that are important for CTET. Not all the type, but some of the types of drills that are important for CTET. First is repetition drill. It's very simple. The teacher will utter something, student will repeat. The teacher will pronounce something, some dialogue, teacher will repeat. Repetition drill. Substitution drill. The teacher will give one sentence, will give some cue, will give some hint, will ask the student to substitute in that particular word into that sentence. Substitution drill. Transformation drill. What a transformation drill? We want to teach the student different types of sentences, patterns of sentences, so we use transformation drill. Let's say we will ask the student that I am speaking the positive sentence, you make the negative sentence. I am speaking the interrogative sentence, you make the negative sentence. Or I am speaking the interrogative sentence, you have to make it declarative sentence. Or the I am speaking in active voice, you have to make it passive voice. So if we are doing this type of drill, it is transformation drill. Then backward build up or expansion drill. When we start from the end and eventually starting from the end, we ask the student to expand it. It's expansion drill or backward build-up drill. And then chain drill. In chain drill, teacher will speak one sentence, will ask the student to repeat that sentence, and then ask another student to ask the same question, and then this particular class will work in a chain. Now we'll come to these drills in a bit detail. We'll try to cover up some more drills you can say that with some examples, so that we can be able to identify, we can at least be able to identify with the options of the CTET what type of drill the question is asking about. Before that, let's try to find out the role of the teacher and the role of the learner while the transaction of teaching learning process is done through the audiolingual method. If you are following the audiolingual method, as a teacher, you will not work as facilitators. I repeat, when you are teaching any concept through audio-lingual method, you as teacher will not work as facilitators. You will work as lecturers. You will work as dictators. You have to dictate. You will work like in the people who work in orchestra. That people will ask and others will follow. So teacher is at the root, is at the main role, is at the leading role, is at the, you can say, teacher will rectify, teacher will correct, teacher will give responses, everything teacher will do. So role of teacher is that you see in the traditional classroom. Exactly that role of teacher is there in audio-lingual method. Teacher will work as lecturer, teacher will work as orchestra conductor, teacher will work as manager, teacher will work as dictator, teacher will not work as facilitators if the teacher is following the method that is audio-lingual method. Why? See, so what the teacher is doing, let's repeat it together. But I will speak first. You have to repeat after me. So who is modeling? Who is leading? Teacher is modeling, teacher is leading. Who is giving instruction? Teacher is giving instruction. Who is controlling the pace of the learning? Who is controlling the speed of the learning? Who is controlling the contents? Who is controlling the boundaries? Teacher is controlling. Who is providing the corrective measures? Who is providing the feedback? Who is providing the reinforcement? Teacher is providing the feedback. Teacher is providing the reinforcement. Teacher is correcting. So this is totally teacher-centered method. What learners will do then? Yes sir, yes ma'am, I have copied, I have written, yes sir, I'll repeat the sentence, I will mimic, I will imitate, I will say I will follow the instructions as and when you give. So teacher is at active role, playing the active role, whereas the learners plays the passive role. Learners just repeats it, learners just imitates it, learners just responds to the instruction given by the teacher. So the direction of teaching learning process of audio-lingual method is teacher to student, content to student, teachers to student, native speaker to student, not student to student. Okay. Now, what are the keywords that will help us to identify that the question is talking about audio-lingual method? In CTET, how will we identify that our question is talking about audio-lingual method? How can we save our time? Instead of reading the entire option or the entire question, with the help of these keywords, we can definitely identify that the option or the question is talking about audio-lingual method. And those keywords are, if your question says habit formation, say your sentence goes up to 2-3 lines, but you find the gist of those 2-3 lines is habit formation, or the gist of those 3-4 lines is pattern drills, or you find mimicry, or you find memorization of dialogues, or you find mechanical practice or practice like robo, then these all options are giving you the hint that the question is talking about audio-lingual method. So once you see in option habit formation, once you see in option pattern drills, you see mimicry, you see exact imitation, you see native type speaker, native type listener, you see memorization of dialogues, you see mechanical practice is being done in the classroom during the teaching learning process, the answer is audio-lingual method. Now, one question is based on, sometimes this question is asked, that what to do with the errors? What to do with errors if you are teaching particular concept through audio-lingual method? If you are teaching through audio-lingual method, you are not allowed to avoid the errors. You are not allowed to think errors as the part of learning. What you have to do is, you need to take care of that the learning is equals to the formation of habit. When you say that learning is equals to the formation of habit, there is no room for error. There is no space for committing error. What you have to do is, the moment student commits mistake or makes an error, you have to immediately rectify that error. There is no window for error. There is no space for error. You cannot avoid errors. You cannot think that I will rectify it tomorrow. The moment student mispronounce a word, you have to tell the correct pronunciation then and there. So errors are rectified then and there immediately if we teach through audio-lingual method. Now, what is the pattern of skill? We know that learning any language is learning skills, and there are 4 language skills, LSRW. So if we are focusing on all 4 learning skills, all 4 skills, which means we are learning the language or the entire concept of language. But when we learn the language through the audio-lingual method, our focus is on listening, our focus is on speaking. So the natural way of learning any language is following the sequence of L, S, R, W. Begin with listening, continue to speaking, then reading, and at the end writing. So while learning the language through the audio-lingual method, we do follow this natural approach, natural sequence. We focus on the listening and speaking, followed by the reading and writing. We start with listening and speaking, followed by the reading and writing. So this is the natural sequence of language learning. That natural sequence is followed while learning through this particular way, that is audio-lingual method. Now I said that there are certain types of drills which are repeatedly being asked in the question. Sometimes they will give you one situation and will ask that teacher is following this, teacher is teaching in this particular method, following this particular way, following this particular approach. Now find out what type of drill is the teacher using. So we focus on some of the drills quickly. We'll start with substitution drill. Now substitution means, what does this substitution mean? Substitution means you give one option to replace. Substitution is equal to replacement. I as teacher will speak one sentence. With that sentence, I'll give one hint word, one cue word, I will give one insinuation or the hint to the student, and student will work on that insinuation, student will work on that hint, student will work on that cue, and will replace that particular, will replace through that word, will substitute by using that word which is given as hint, which is given as cue, which is given as insinuation. For example, let's say the teacher says, I have a pen. Now in the queue, in the bracket, or let's say on the board, teacher have written book. Teacher writes book. Now what student have to do is replace this pen with book. Now what is the sentence of the students through the substitution drill would be, students will say I have a book. Instead of speaking I have a pen, student will say I have a book, which means substitution of pen through the book, substitution of the cue. He is playing football. This is the sentence of the teacher, of the facilitator, because in audio-lingual method teacher will not work as facilitator, teacher will work as lecturer, as dictator, as traditional teacher. So teacher is using the sentence, he is playing football. Now as hint we are giving word cricket or any name, hockey, whatever. Now students are expected to not repeat, not mimic, not imitate the same sentence like he is playing football. Rather replace this football with the cricket and say he is playing cricket. So in substitution drill, we give one sentence or we give series of sentences, and with the series of sentences we provide the hint, word list, or whatever cue we can provide, and ask the student to replace based on the cues, based on the hint, and give their new sentence. So this is substitution drill. Sentence, keywords, and new sentence. Next is transformation drill. Simple. Transformation means to change the type of the sentence, to change the voice, to change the sentence type. Simply, it's transformation. Let's say teacher gives an instruction that I will speak the negative sentence, and then you have to change it to positive sentence. I will ask the affirmative, you have to ask negative. I'll give the imperative sentence, you have to make it positive. So this type of changing of the types of sentence comes under the drill of transformation drill. Now why do we say it drill? Just like in army, The soldiers have to practice in the early morning, they have to drill, they have to practice the physical exercise, they have to run. Now that particular method of drilling is used in the teaching learning process, that I am speaking the sentence, you have to speak the sentence, you have to speak this sentence quickly, immediately, following me, and just follow the instruction that I am giving. And while we are using transformation sentence, the instruction is such, I'll write on the board that change the sentence into the negative sentence. Now teacher will speak positive sentence, students are required to speak the negative sentence or the following the instruction, whatever the instruction is. So let's say example, he is a teacher, the instruction says change into negative. The students are expected to not repeat the same sentence or drill the same sentence or say he is a teacher. Students are expected to change this sentence into negative following the instruction, transform the sentence, metamorphism is at the core of transformation drill. So student will change it, he is not a teacher, simply by adding not, student made it negative. So transformation drill is all about changing the type of sentence. Next is replacement drill. This is similar to the substitution drill, but here what we do is we replace a phrase or a noun with a pronoun. In the replacement drill, what we do is we replace the noun or we replace the phrase or we replace the part of the sentence with the pronoun. For example, the sentence teacher says John is sleeping. Now students are expected to replace this noun John to one particular pronoun. That pronoun for John, if it is male, then if he is male, then definitely it is he. If she is female, then definitely it is she. So another example, like say I love my parents. Now what students are expected to do in the replacement drill, students are expected to replace parents with the relative pronoun, with the pronoun which can replace parents, and that pronoun is I love them. So in replacement drill, the part of sentence is replaced with the correct pronoun that can replace that particular part of sentence or particular noun. Next is expansion drill. Expansion means you have to expand, you have to add something new into the sentence that the teacher provides. For example, teacher says I have a car. Now in hint teacher says red. Now as a student I am expected to say I have a red car. So what I have done is into the original sentence of the teacher I have added one word, I have expanded it. If I am following this, which means I am working on the expansion drill. Now reverse of expansion is the contraction drill. What is contraction drill? We have to use the abbreviation, we have to use the shortened version, we have to use the you can say contracted form of the words, contracted forms of the verbs contracted forms of the words, compressed forms of the words, shortened forms of the words we have to use in the contraction drill. For example, teacher says he is not coming, he is not coming. Now students are required to practice through the contraction drill. Instead of speaking he is not, students will say he isn't coming, he isn't coming. Now see, put the books back in the place where they belong, in the place where they belong. Student will contract it and then will shorten it, put the books back there. They will go tomorrow. Now instead of speaking they will contract it, and the contracted form will be they'll go tomorrow. She does not like tea. Instead of speaking does an answer to the next student, and in this chain it will move up to the last student of the class. So this is starting from the teacher's instruction, starting from the teacher's sentence, ending up to the last student of the classroom or the last student of the group where we are doing the activity in chain drill. For example, teacher says what is your name? Now student A says my name is Amit. Then let's say we have a chain of 3-4 questions. So I will ask all those 3-4 questions to the student A. Student A will answer it. Now student A will ask all those questions to the student B, will get the answer from student B, and then student B will ask all those questions to the student C and will get the answers from the student C, and this activity will continue till the completion of the activity in the group or the entire classroom is covered. This is chain drill. Now restoration drill. Restoration means restore the broken words, restore the unstructured things into the structured sentence, restore it into a grammatically correct sentence. Again, for example, teacher gives the broken words or the segregated words or the segregated elements of the sentence. Let's say boy ran and rode. Now the student has to form sentence, the boy is running on the road, or whatever sentence that is probably that can be made probably by using these three words. So you can say restoration drill is somewhat similar to the jumbled sentences. Somewhat similar to the jumbled sentences. We give the jumbled words, students will restore those jumbled words into a particular grammatical meaningful sentence. That's the restoration drill. Now integration drill. What we have to do is integrate. There are separate sentences. We can say that, let's say there are two simple sentences and those sentences are not connected. So by using conjunction, by using relative pronoun, by using any word, we can connect those particular sentences or particular phrases and make it a meaningful sentence. If we are doing this, we are following integration drill. For example, the teacher says, I know the man, he is a doctor. I know the man, he is a doctor. Okay. Now, students will connect both these sentences and will say, I know the man who is a doctor. So, connecting this he to the man by using who, that is relative pronoun. So, in integration drill, we integrate different parts of sentences by using connectors like conjunction. So, because although by using relative pronoun who, which, that, or by using any meaningful word to make that sentence coherent and meaningful. Let's take one more example. Let's say he worked hard and he failed the exam. He worked hard, he failed the exam. This is the sentence of the teacher. Now students will use any of the conjunction or relative pronoun to make this meaningful and connect both the sentences or integrate both the sentences. So we can connect it. Although he worked hard, he failed the exam. So by using this although, we have connected or we can say integrated both the sentences. This is integration drill. Now let's start to check our understanding of audio-lingual method. We will see some of the previous year questions based on the audio-lingual method or inductive-deductive method. We will try to check our understanding of the particular concept that is inductive method, deductive method, that are inductive method, deductive method, and this audio-lingual method or the army method. These are all previous year questions based on the audio-lingual method. Let's start with question number 1. It's very simple. If you are there, you can answer in the chat box if you are there or in the comment section. The audio-lingual method is based heavily on which psychological theory? We have discussed that audio-lingual method or army method, there are two basic principles or psychological principles or psychological foundational stone on which this audio-lingual method is based, and those are behaviorism, and we have the option behaviorism. Behaviorism is all about habit formation, memorization, drilling. The audio-lingual method relies on B.F. Skinner's behaviorist psychology, and behaviorist psychologists believe in the process of habit formation, wherein we present the stimulus, students will give some response, and then students will get reinforcement, and that habit formation will be done as part of the learning. In the audio-lingual method, what is the primary technique used to drill the sentence pattern? So we know that in audio-lingual method, drills are the you can say non-separable element. Drills will be there if audio-lingual method is used. Now, which is the most repeatedly used or most frequently used type of drill that we use while teaching through audio-lingual method? While teaching through audio-lingual method, repetition drill and substitution drills are used most frequently. Either you ask the student to repeat just like the teacher, imitate just like the teacher, mimic just like the teacher, or you ask the student that I am speaking one sentence, giving you one word, you have to replace that particular word, substitute that word. So repetition and substitution drill is used frequently while teaching through audiolingual method. Repetition and substitution drills. Which language skill receives highest priority in audiolingual method? Highest priority. First, which skill is at the focus, is at the core of audiolingual method? I say that the supremacy, we have seen in the previous slide, the supremacy is oral and oral, which means speaking and listening. Speaking and listening is at the core of audiolingual method. Just listen and speak. Listen and become speakers like native speakers. So listening and speaking is at the core of audiolingual method. What is the teacher's role in a classroom using the audiolingual method? Let's say you are a teacher and the principal has instructed you that today you have to use audiolingual method to teach this particular concept or to teach this particular poem. What will you do as a teacher in audiolingual method? Do we work like facilitator in audiolingual classroom? The answer is no. We do not work like facilitator in a classroom where we have to follow the audiolingual method. We are either the dictator, we are either the director, we are either the role model or the person of eminence or the native speaker to whom the learners are expected to follow, disciples are expected to follow. So we will work as director and model of target language behavior. We have to model it, students will follow the modeling. How are grammatical rules taught in the audiolingual method? Grammatical rules. While teaching through audiolingual method, we do never use deductive, we use inductive. We have seen that we use inductive way. We'll give n number of certain sets of dialogues, certain sets of examples, and by practicing those dialogues, those contextual dialogues, students will get to know the rule. So inductive way is followed to teach grammar while teaching through audiolingual method. The audiolingual method is popularly known as, or you can say the synonym or another name or the classical name for audiolingual method is, the classical name for audiolingual method is army method, because the core, the foundation of audiolingual method is to train the soldiers for World War II. So army method is another name of audiolingual method. What approach does the audiolingual method take towards learners' errors? How do we see errors while teaching through audiolingual methods? Errors are natural and should be ignored. In, let's say this option is there in CTET, in CDP, in pedagogy, that errors are natural and errors should be ignored and errors should be taken as natural part of the learning process. We can say that yes, it may be correct, but here it is totally wrong. Errors we cannot ignore. If we ignore the errors while teaching through audiolingual method, then that error will become the wrong habit. So what we have to do is, errors must not be avoided and immediately corrected to prevent bad habit. In order to prevent bad habit, prevention is better than cure. In order to prevent bad habit, we have to correct the errors immediately. We have to focus on the errors immediately. Which of the following material is most relevant for audiolingual method? Or you can say the most important LTM or TLM for audiolingual method, or without which the audiolingual method cannot be used, cannot be followed. Tape recordings, language labs and visual cues. These are the important elements, because you have to record the sound, the pronunciation of the native speaker and ask the student to listen to it, copy it, imitate it. So you need tape recording, you need language lab, you need visual cues, you need videos. A key feature of audiolingual method is the use of dialogues. Yes, while teaching through audiolingual method, we do use dialogues. These dialogues are primarily used to, why do we use dialogues? Introduce structural patterns contextually, Develop deep reading and comprehension skills. Deep reading and comprehension skills are not part of audiolingual method. Teach historical fact. It is totally irrelevant option. Practice creative writing, totally irrelevant option. So introduce structural patterns contextually. When we say structural patterns, structural pattern means the second principle on which audiolingual method is based. That is structuralism, which means see the language as part of elements, focus on each element separately, teach elements separately, and ask the student to get mastery over the element and move to the next element. So yes, while teaching through audiolingual method, we do introduce that structural patterns in terms of context. Context means that particular small area where they have to use. For example, the battleground. In the context of the battleground, we will give the sentence, we will give the dialogues, we will give the pattern of sentences that are to be followed, that are to be used in the battleground. So, introduction of structural patterns contextually. Why? See, if the sentence says that in audiolingual method context is at the center, or we make the student able to use the language contextually, it is wrong. We do not make, if we say that we are making the student capable of using the sentences, using the language contextually, then that is the definition of CLT, communicative language teaching. That's not the definition of ALT, or the audiolingual ALM, audiolingual method. Which linguistic framework supports the audiolingual method? Audiolingual method, transformational generative grammar, structure. We have seen that core of audiolingual method is structuralism. In the audiolingual method, vocabulary is strictly limited. In audiolingual method, vocabulary is limited. Why it is limited? Vocabulary is considered useless. If it is considered useless, then why it is presented? It's wrong. The focus is on mastering structural patterns first. Maybe students cannot remember words easily. It's totally different thing. It relies on universal symbols. That's wrong. They focus on mastering structural patterns. These are the patterns of the sentences that is to be used in the classroom. These are the patterns of sentences that is to be used in the principal room. These are the patterns of sentences is to be used in the battleground. So what we do is we do master the vocabulary related to a particular context, related to a very narrow down contextual thing. That's why we say that the student who learn the language through the audiolingual method have very limited or strict vocabulary. Which drill involves changing a statement into a question or positive or into negative? Changing the types of sentence means transformation of sentences, and transformation of sentences comes under the transformation drill. Transformation is equals to metamorphosis. Transformation is equal to change. Transformation is equal to negative to positive, imperative to negative, interrogative to negative, transformation drill. What is the major limitation of audiolingual method or the drawback of audiolingual method? It completely ignores correct pronunciation? No. The core of audiolingual method is the correct pronunciation, the pronunciation of native speaker. It focuses strictly on the correct pronunciation. It does not ignore. It focuses strictly on correct pronunciation. So this is wrong. It does not help in developing real life spontaneous communication. It may be. It requires too much creative writing. No. It heavily relies on the mother tongue. There is no room, there is no space for using mother tongue in the audiolingual method. If not even a single word of mother tongue is allowed to be spoken while learning language through audiolingual method. So it's wrong. Option B says it does not help in developing real life spontaneous communication, which is true. It gives you just a small context, vocabulary related to that particular concept, dialogue related to that particular context, and you can just mug up the things and vomit it out in that particular context. So it will not make you able to use that language skill into the classroom or into the real life situation. So you won't be able to communicate spontaneously. If somebody asks you, let's say you have practiced the dialogues of how to speak in an form. So you can speak in a form based on your limited vocabulary, but if you have to face another situation, let's say the situation, or you have to speak in the context of bank, in the context of post office, in the context of school classroom, you won't be able to use. So spontaneous communication is not at the core of audiolingual method. The focus on automaticity in language production via habit formation is central too. This is exactly the classical definition of audiolingual method. Audiolingual method will make you a machine, whereas you will be able to do the things automatically. You will be able to speak the sentences, repeat the dialogues automatically without taking stress, without even knowing the correct meaning or the cognitive understanding of the sentence. You will be able to speak up. So it gives you that automaticity. You will be able to, let's say, once you are into the battleground, you will be able to follow the instruction of the commander. So automatic thing will come, and this comes through audiolingual method, option B, audiolingual method. Which drill requires a student to answer a question and then turn to ask to the next student? Next student, then next student, then next student, which means chain drill. You have to answer the question, ask the same question to the next student and listen to the answer, and then next student will pass it to student D, student E, and this is how chain drill will go. The use of native language, that is L1, in an audiolingual classroom is, it says L1, which means native language. The use of native language is strongly encouraged throughout, used for all grammatical instructions, strictly discouraged to prevent interference, encouraged only during group tasks. Use of native language is native language. Native language means your home language, your mother tongue, your local language. Use of your home language, use of your mother tongue, use of your local dialect is not allowed in audiolingual method. So it is strictly discouraged. Why is it discouraged? It is discouraged to prevent the interference into the language that you have to learn. Sorry, I think again there is some technical problem. Please wait. Okay. When a teacher breaks a long sentence into shorter parts, starting from the end, when you see the end, starting from the end, it's backward build up drill. Starting from the end, you give the sentence, parts of sentence in the chunk, and then will lead to the final statement. Positive reinforcement in the form of praise, positive reinforcement in the form of appraisal, positive reinforcement in the form of good words, positive reinforcement in the form of good gestures is used in the ALM2. Distract student? No. Consolidate and strengthen the correct language habit? Maybe. Encourage peer critic? No. Grade formal assignments? No. So option B, consolidate and strengthen correct language habit. Once student imitates, student mimics the right pronunciation, the right word in the right way, or the way the native speaker presented, if the student is able to imitate that, we have to say good, bravo, marvelous, splendid. Why? Because we need to make that student able to come up with that language, come up with the pronunciation as form of their habit, So what is the purpose of this saying good boy, good girl? Our purpose is to strengthen that language habit, strengthen that way of pronunciation, strengthen that way of using the sentence. Overlearning in audiolingual method means learning too much advanced vocabulary. We do not learn too much advanced vocabulary in audiolingual method. We learn very limited vocabulary through audiolingual method. Practicing structures beyond mastery so they become fully automatic? Maybe. Studying for exams? No. Relying entirely on translated text? No. Learning too much advanced vocabulary? No. Practicing structures beyond mastery. See, You have mastered that sentence, you have mastered that way of pronunciation. Even after that, beyond that mastery, you are practicing it. Why? So that it becomes automatic. It comes out automatically. That is overlearning. Which language teaching method aligns most closely with the structural syllabus pattern? When you say structural is at the core of audiolingual method. When you say behaviorism is at the core of audiolingual method. Under the audiolingual method, pronunciation is taught. How do we teach or how do we focus on pronunciation while teaching through audiolingual method? Only through written phonetic symbols. The moment you see only, option is gone. Rigorously from the beginning, focusing on the native like imitation, maybe. After the student masters reading comprehension, no. We do not focus on reading, we do not focus on comprehension, we do not focus on understanding, we don't bother for comprehension, we don't bother for understanding. What we bother for is make the student to speak like robot, make the student to speak like machines, make the student able to just follow, make the student able to just imitate, make the student able to just mimic. That is rigorously from the beginning, focusing native like imitation. So you say, what we say to the student or to the learner is, pronounce the word in the particular way the speaker is pronouncing in the audio. So from the beginning we focus on pronunciation, option B. When a teacher provides a cue, word like book, to change I have a pen to I have a book. What is this? Transformation drill, single slot substitution drill, chain drill, or meaningful conversation. It's substitute this word to particular word, substitute this sentence to particular sentence, substitute this particular part of sentence to this particular part, single slot substitution drill. Replacement of the word, replacement of the part of the sentence comes under substitution drill. The fundamental goal of the audiolingual method is to help learners acquire. What is the purpose of audiolingual method? What do we want? Literary appreciation skills. Do we want to make our students or learners able to appreciate the forms of literary art? Appreciate the poem, appreciate the story, appreciate the literature? No. Linguistic habits for target language communication. Maybe. Professional translation capabilities. Translation is not at the core of, is not at the focus area of audiolingual method. Lexical analytical techniques is not at the focus of audiolingual method. Literary appreciation skill is not at the focus of audiolingual method. Whereas linguistic habits, the moment you see habit, it means you are talking about audiolingual method. Linguistic habit and target language communication. Target language communication means communication in English, communication in Hindi, whatever the target language is. Which method is completely opposite to the cognitive code approach? Cognitive code approach. The moment you see the word cognitive means understanding, cognitive means comprehension. For the cognition, for the comprehension, for the understanding, attention, sensation, perception, memory, imagination, creativity, everything is required. Whereas in the audiolingual method, your creativity, your imagination, it has no use at all. You are expected to just follow a set of dialogue, you are just expected to imitate certain sets of dialogue, you are expected to use certain set of dialogue in certain set of context that teacher will make, that boundary teacher will draw. So there is no use of cognition, attention, sensation, perception, imagination, memory. There is no use of cognition. What is exactly opposite to the cognitive code? Audiolingual method is exactly opposite to the cognitive code, because in audiolingual method, do we have to imagine? No. Do we have to create? No. Do you have to make our own sentences? No. Do we have to use this particular language in daily life? No. we are limited into a contextual room set up by the speaker, set up by the teacher. So it is exactly opposite to the cognitive code. The practice of mim-mam. Mim means mimicry and memorization. So mimicry and memorization are the part of audiolingual method. Either you have to mimic the native speaker, either you have to mimic your teacher, or you memorize the thing. Not either or, you have to mimic and memorize. You have to mimic and memorize. Mimic and memorize is part of audiolingual method. Thank you so much. I hope we are able to understand audiolingual method, inductive method and deductive method, and practice through some of the questions based on the audiolingual method. Thank you so much. Thank you.